We've been talking about how in the Old Testament book of Exodus, God led the people of Israel in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. While we can sometimes miss it, God still leads us today through some modern day pillars. We've been going through these in our Devos this week, and we've come to the final pillar that God can use as He seeks to lead us in wisdom and guide us. It's the pillar of God-directed circumstances. I thought it was interesting that Pastor Jim said that it's to this pillar that we usually run the fastest. But upon further reflection, that kind of makes sense, right? We want the clearest way of hearing God's voice. We want to get as close to experiencing God in a pillar of cloud or fire as we can. So an open door or a green light or a well-timed phone call, these seem pretty close. And certainly, God does sometimes direct our circumstances in an effort to lead us. But of the 5 pillars, the Bible, prayer, godly counsel, the Holy Spirit, and God-directed circumstances, the one we should consult last is indeed circumstances. And this is mostly because this pillar is the easiest for us to misinterpret. As Pastor Jim reminded us, not all open doors are opened by God. And we can have a strong emotional connection to a particular choice, which makes it easy to misread circumstances in order to validate the decision that we want to make. I mentioned a few weeks ago in the Courageous Parenting series that ever since childhood, I had had a strong sense that I was meant to adopt. And so with guys that I dated in college, I would often bring the subject up to see how they felt about adoption. And if they were opposed to it, I'd think, well, it's just not God's will for us to be together. So imagine my surprise when I met a guy who, because of a genetic condition he had, could not have children of his own. This is the one, I decided. God couldn't have made it clearer, I thought. And because I had chosen to interpret that coincidence as God directed, I ended up missing quite a few red flags that he was indeed not the one for me. For years, I endured an unhealthy relationship because of how I misinterpreted that one circumstance. And I point this out just to remind us of how dangerous it can be to interpret circumstances in isolation from God's other pillars. More often, God uses circumstances to reinforce things that He has already showed us in the Bible, that He has already whispered to us in prayer, that He has already told us through godly counsel or through a prompting of the Holy Spirit. So yes, the pillar of circumstances matters, but only as it complements the other pillars. So, to wrap up, I don't know what decisions you might be facing or where you might be hoping for God to lead you. But I pray that you are able to recognize that God is so near to you and that He is ready and willing to guide you. It's up to you, though, to not only understand the pillars He's using, but to be ready to follow where He might lead you.